when I started out drumming, I used to look at a lot of the like top drummers list, top 10 drummers of all time, top 20, top whatever. And one thing I noticed as it was going on, like as I went on in my journey as a drummer, I noticed a lot of the top 10 lists or the top whatever lists of drummers, they tended to be the same, which no disrespect, but when you saw a top whatever drummers list coming up, you could already tell you were going to see Neil Peart, you were going to see John Bonham, you were going to see Keith Moon, you were going to see Buddy Rich, you were going to see whomever, Which, not to say that those drummers don't deserve it, but when you're trying to discover new drummers to listen to, it can get kind of stale. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss five drummers that I think are underrated and deserve more praise. So, the first drummer I'm going to talk about is Cozy Powell. Cozy Powell was one of the drummers for the Jeff Beck group. He also played with Rainbow, Michael Schenker group, Whitesnake, Black Sabbath. He played with Brian May. He played with Gary Moore, among many other groups. He also had his own group actually called Cozy Powell's Hammerage, who had a top 5 UK hit with a track called Dance with the Devil. Now, this is actually insane to think about because Dance with the Devil is an instrumental, it's an instrumental piece of music all centered around the drums. It was a top 5 hit. That's insane to think about, that we had like an instrumental, drum heavy piece as a top 5 UK hit. Like, that's insane. Like, you're never going to get anything like that again, Like, the 70s really was a different time. Cozy, above all else, he had a tremendous feel, brought great swing and absolute power to the drum kit. He was probably, if, in my opinion, if Led Zeppelin had to have anyone else after them, after John Bonham died, my money would have been on Cozy Powell. I think he would have been probably the best fit for them because he had a very similar style to Bonzo. They both had tremendous swing. You know, they were both absolute powerhouses as the kid. They were just both brilliant drummers. So, notable songs that Cozy Powell played on, as mentioned before, was his piece called Dance with the Devil. There's another one of his solo pieces, a track called Killer, which also features Don Airey on keys, Gary Moore on guitar, and Jack Bruce on bass, along with Cozy Powell on the drums. And that's got a killer double bass shuffle as well. He also played on a track called Stargazer by Rainbow, which also had vocals by the legendary Ronnie James Dio. He played on another track called Love Ain't No Stranger with Whitesnake, and he actually played on the entire Slide It In album. In fact, I have that album, and the only reason I bought it is because Cozy Powell's on it, believe it or not. And he also played on a track called Resurrection, which is one of Brian May's many solo efforts. The next drummer I'm going to talk about is a man named Brian Downey. Brian is most famous for being the drummer for Thin Lizzy, and he's currently on tour with his band Alive and Dangerous. So, what makes Brian special is that he brought a nice jazz swing to Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy were a hard rock band, a lot of heavy, it was a lot of heavy, big guitar sounds. So it was a different feel for them to have like a nice jazz swing to the band. But when he needed to, he could lay it in, he could lay into the drums, play hard, and he could play heavy when he wanted to and needed to. Notable songs that Brian has performed on, there are many. So the ones I've chosen are Emerald, their famous song "The Boys Are Back in Town," both of which are on their 1976 album Jailbreak. There's another track called Suicide. I prefer the version of their live album Live and Dangerous, but it's also on the album Fighting, so you can listen to both and see which one you like. There's also the Bad Reputation song, the title track to the album Bad Reputation. And again, I also prefer the live and dangerous version of this song. It's called Shalala, and what makes it great is it's it, it. What makes it great is, first of all, it showcases his drum solo in the band, and it also showcases some great double bass playing. It's rather simple what he's actually like. What the double bass is doing. It's just 16th notes all the way through. Just one E and a two E and a three E and a four E and a one E and a two E and a three E and a four E and it's that the whole way through, but it's literally non-stop. Like the minute he starts, he's just doing that the whole way through. And I think the whole thing goes on for about 5 minutes, which, it, as well as keeping that so tight, he's pretty much doing everything else on the kit. It's can actually like everything else he's doing on the kit whilst keeping solid time on the bass drums. It's very cool actually. As I said, I prefer the live and dangerous version, but it's also on their album Nightlife if you care to check that out. The next drummer I'm going to talk about, moving away from the rock music genre, is a guy named John Bradbury. Now, John Bradbury he's most known for being the drummer for The Specials, and he was also the drummer for their spin-off group, The Special AKA. John brought a great fusion of ska and reggae with punk energy. Excuse me. And Bradbury, his most notable songs are Rat Race, Too Much Too Young, which is one of my personal favourites, Nightclub, Ghost Town, and A Message to You, Rudy. Bradbury also was synonymous with having his own sort of. He's one of these drummers that had his own sort of snare sound, which came from how he hit it more than the actual tuning method of it. Most drummers, when they hit a snare drum, especially when they would hit a rim shot, they would hit the center of the drum and the rim of the drum at the same time. But John, what he used to do was he used to actually hit the rim of the drum and then sort of the far left side of the snare drum. And this gave it a more ringier sound and gave what I consider to be a signature Bradbury bonk, as I like to call it. Because it means that when you hear it, you know it's him. And it kind of helped him stand out a bit from the rest of the two-tone drummers. This next drummer is known to some as Alan Wren, but to many of us he is known as Rennie. Rennie is the drummer for the Stone Roses and is from Manchester, England. As well as being the drummer in the band, he also was their backing vocalist. Which, when you watch him play some of the tunes that they would actually, when you watch him play some of the parts that he played, doing that as well as being able to do backing vocals is extremely amazing. And he was practically the unheard of, voice of an angel within the band. Doesn't get enough credit, I think, for his vocal abilities. So he brought a great funky feel to the band with a mix of hard rock power. A lot of people don't know this, but he actually grew up listening to a lot of heavy rock music. He was listening to AC/DC and Van Halen and all sorts of stuff. He was a heavy metal guy, believe it or not, while the rest of the band members, the rest of the band like Ian Brown and John Squire, they were into a lot of like northern soul and ska music. They were Scooter Boys, and then Rennie was a smelly, as they used to call him, because he was a big smelly heavy metal dude. So noticeable songs that he plays on include I Am the Resurrection, Waterfall, which I have covered on this channel, believe it or not, Elephant Stone, Love Spreads, and there's another one called Made of Stone. They're just a few of them, but I would recommend you check out their entire self-titled album. It's amazing. I cannot recommend it enough, to be honest. The final drummer I'm going to talk about is a man named Clive Burr. Clive is the former drummer for Iron Maiden. He played on their first three studio albums. He played on their self-titled album. He played on Killers, and he most famously played on The Number of the Beast. Now, when people think Iron Maiden, a lot of people think Nico McBrain, but Clive was their original drummer, and he was one of their original drummers. They went through many band members before arriving on the lineup that went into the studio for their debut album, and since then their lineup has changed to the lineup they have now. So Clive used to have a nice swing with a good heavy rock feel. He was kind of in the similar vein to guys like he was in a similar vein to guys like Ian Pace and the aforementioned Brian Downey. Had a nice kind of swing to them, but they could also be absolute monsters on the kit when they needed to be. A lot of the songs I'm going to recommend are also off the Number of the Beast album, because I think they're the ones that where he really got to showcase his talents as a drummer. So, notable songs of his that I can think of are Wrathchild, which is actually from the Killers album. There's a song called The Prisoner. Two of Iron Maiden's hits, which are Run to the Hills and Number of the Beast, I can recommend. And then there's Gangland. Gangland's a great one because it has a great shuffle groove drum intro played by Clive, and it's probably one of the more fun drum pieces to actually play. So anyway, so that does it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, share it around if you want to, and once again, thank you very much.